Greetings, dear friends. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we will take a detailed look at the situation in Ukraine as of December 27, 2025. An exceptionally large number of significant and high-profile events have taken place over the past 24 hours. So without any lengthy introductions, let us move straight to an analysis of what is happening. On the night of December 27th, the Russian side carried out a large-scale attack across the territory of Ukraine, employing hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles and several dozen missiles of various types. Formally speaking, this strike cannot be described as the most powerful of the entire conflict when measured solely by the total number of weapons used. However, with a high degree of confidence, it can be stated that this particular attack was the most concentrated and dense in terms of the number of missiles and drones per square kilometer of the city of Kiev and the Kiev region. If one carefully examines the strike trajectory map, it becomes evident that virtually all routes, without exception, converge in a single direction, toward the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev. All categories of strike assets were directed toward Kiev. The yellow lines indicate the flight paths of attack drones, the red lines correspond to cruise missile strikes, and the green lines represent caliber missile launches from the Black Sea. In addition, orange lines are also present on the map, which most likely indicate the use of hypersonic missiles, presumably of the Kinjal type. Thus, throughout that night, nearly all deployed weapon systems were concentrated specifically on the Kiev axis. Somewhat later, closer to midday, around 12 p.m., the Ukrainian side published an analytical report presenting approximate figures regarding the number of missiles and drones used during this strike. According to this publication, within a single 24-hour period, overnight and through the morning, as of 1 p.m. on December 27th, the Russian side employed a total of 559 aerial targets, including both various types of missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles. Throughout the entire night and into the morning hours, a large volume of video footage appeared in the public domain. These recordings showed both the strikes themselves, carried out by drones and missiles, as well as the aftermath of the impacts. In particular, one video captured destruction in the Myrnohrad area. Judging by the nature of the damage, the strikes most likely targeted energy infrastructure facilities, possibly a power plant or an electrical substation. Overall, the visual evidence clearly confirms that the strike was indeed massive and intense. All of these events are unfolding against the backdrop of an important political context. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is reportedly planning to visit the United States in the near future, possibly for the last time this year. As before, he intends to present his so-called 20-point plan. However, this is not merely a formal presentation of a document. Zelensky has already stated that, if this plan is approved, he is prepared to put it to a nationwide Ukrainian referendum. Within the framework of such a referendum, Ukrainian citizens would independently decide whether they are prepared to accept certain concessions and, more broadly, how the current conflict should be handled, whether it should be brought to an end or continued. At the same time, Zelensky has set one fundamental condition. The referendum can only take place if a 60-day ceasefire is implemented. A number of Russian military and political experts have already expressed skepticism towards such an initiative. The reason is that this 60-day ceasefire would most likely fall in January and February 2026, traditionally the most difficult months for Ukraine from an economic, energy, and military standpoint. In this regard, there are assumptions that such a pause could be used by Kiev to regroup forces, restore resources, and simply survive the most challenging winter period. For this reason, as experts note, the Russian side appears at present not ready to accept such a proposal without serious reservations. Well, we will continue to closely monitor how events unfold. In the coming hours and days, we will likely receive answers to many key and pressing questions. Zelensky himself has already stated that his possible meeting in the United States will take place, figuratively speaking, with open doors. There will be no closed negotiations, no behind-the-scenes discussions. All statements, comments, and conversations will be conducted exclusively in front of cameras. According to him, there will be no closed-door talks. Everything that is said will become public knowledge, after which he will leave the United States. This is an extremely important detail for understanding the current political configuration and the process is now underway. It is not impossible that we may yet see something curious, or perhaps even quite ironic, emerge from the Oval Office during a potential interaction between Zelensky and Trump. In any case, we will be watching closely. Now, let us return directly to the line of contact and begin our frontline review with the Zaporizhzhia direction. It is precisely from this sector that the most significant and critical developments have been reported in recent days. The Russian army is conducting active offensive operations in the Zaporizhzhia direction simultaneously across three sectors: Western, Central, and Eastern. Let us begin with the Western Zaporizhzhia sector. As of today, several cartographic services are recording minor but important adjustments to the front line. According to these data, Russian units have once again managed to advance northward in the direction of the settlements of Myrnohrad and Veselyanka. For now, this information is primarily confirmed by individual neutral cartographic sources. In addition, particular attention should be paid to a chain of strongpoints located between Stepnohursk and the settlement of Orikhiv. Russian advances are also being recorded there. Gradually, Russian forces are approaching the settlements of Pavlivka and Novoyakivlivka at close range. This stage may become a turning point for the entire sector. If the Russian army succeeds in consolidating its gains and advancing in the area of several settlements simultaneously, Lukyanivske, Novoboykivske, Novoyakivlivka, and Pavlivka, the situation will change fundamentally. From that moment, a countdown could effectively begin for the city of Orikhiv itself. It is here that the key battle for initiative and for the creation of a stable bridgehead is currently unfolding, after which the further development of events will become far more predictable. In terms of logic and operational significance, this cluster of four small settlements closely resembles the situation on the Huliaipole axis, in the area of Uspanivka and Novomykolaivka. As a reminder, fighting there dragged on for a long time, but once those two settlements fell, the Russian army advanced toward Huliaipole quite rapidly and is now actively pushing forward within the city itself. Next, we move to the central Orikhiv, or central Zaporizhzhia direction. Certain changes and adjustments are also being recorded here. A number of cartographic sources report that Russian units have begun moving toward the settlement of Novoandriivka, as well as toward the T08-12 highway. Overall, it can be said that the Orikhiv offensive operation is gradually gaining momentum, and it is highly likely that we will soon be receiving a significant volume of new information from this sector. It is also worth recalling that over the past 2 months, reports have repeatedly indicated that Russian forces have improved their positions in the areas of Novodanilivka and the settlement of Malotokmachka. All of this points to the gradual formation of a semi-encirclement of the city of Orikhiv from the southern direction. After that, we move to the eastern Zaporizhzhia direction, toward the settlement of Huliaipole. The current map, or more precisely, its updated configuration, essentially answers most of the questions that previously arose regarding this sector of the front. According to the latest adjustments and data available from open sources, the Russian army likely already controls approximately 80 to 90% of the territory of Huliaipole. This information is confirmed by neutral cartographic services, certain pro-Ukrainian sources, and a number of geolocation materials. Over the past 24 hours, Ukrainian sources have published video footage detailing the course of the fighting for the city of Huliaipole. Within this video, several episodes with precise geographical references were presented. Geolocations and specific video moments showing strikes against positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. In particular, these frames show Ukrainian FPV drone operators striking various buildings. These objects were subsequently accurately geolocated. One of the recorded strikes hit a building located in the area of Shevchenko Street. Another episode shows a strike on a different building in the same area. As you can see, this is already effectively the western outskirts of the settlement of Huliaipole. It is precisely on the basis of these objective control materials, the published video evidence, data from various cartographic services, and information from pro-Ukrainian experts that the corresponding adjustment was made to the operational map. This is how the front line looked just yesterday, on December 26, 2025. Today, based on the full set of available information, the map already looks entirely different. This allows us to say that the likelihood of confirmation of full control over the settlement of Huliaipole within the next 2 to 3 days is extremely high. It cannot be ruled out that an official statement to this effect will soon be issued by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. Most likely, an extensive video report dedicated specifically to the fighting in this sector of the front will also be released. Thus, as we had previously assumed, by the end of the current year, Huliaipole will, in all probability, finally come under the full control of Russian forces. Next, we move on to the Pokrovsk sector of the line of contact. A significant amount of information is also coming from this direction. For the second consecutive day, reports have been emerging that the Ukrainian side has launched counteroffensive actions in the area between the settlements of Belitska and Myrnohrad. At present, Ukrainian formations are attempting, by all available means, to break through the defenses of the armed forces of the Russian Federation and apparently to form a corridor between Myrnohrad, Rodinske, and Belitska. This concerns an attempt to punch through the front line specifically in this sector in order presumably to create a route for withdrawing the Ukrainian contingent, which, according to the available information, remains blocked in the Myrnohrad area. Let me remind you that the day before yesterday, a video recording was published from the southern part of the settlement of Rodinske. In these frames, we see 3 Ukrainian assault troops moving through the southern part of the settlement, occupying buildings and apparently attempting to entrench themselves and establish new positions. Subsequently, air-delivered munitions were used to strike the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine precisely in this area. Based on these images from yesterday, it became clear that combat activity in this sector has intensified. Today, additional information has appeared from various cartographic resources indicating that the Ukrainian army has indeed managed to slightly improve its positions along the perimeter of the settlements of Rodinske, Suketska, Zatishok, as well as in the area of the Krasnolimanska mine. An attempt is underway to advance toward the northern part of Myrnohrad, in order, once again, to form a corridor for the evacuation of the encircled grouping. In addition, video footage has appeared in the public domain from the settlement of Belitske. These are extremely important images. They show Ukrainian assault groups gradually advancing through Belitske toward Rodinske and further in the direction of Myrnohrad. At the same time, airstrikes are being carried out along the presumed routes of advance of Ukrainian infantry. At present, a significant number of Ukrainian infantry units are being thrown into this area. The goal of this operation is largely similar to what was previously observed in the Kupyansk area, to break the blockade of an encircled grouping and, at the same time, to achieve a major media effect. It should also not be forgotten that today a meeting is taking place between Ukraine and the United States, and therefore Kiev is extremely eager to have at least some strong cards in hand for the negotiations. Next, we shift slightly northward to the Dobropilya sector of the front. A minor adjustment of the line of contact has been recorded in this direction today. Some analysts report an advance by Russian units in the area between the settlements of Toretsk, Sofiivka, and Shakov. A small section of terrain has currently moved into the so-called grey zone. After that, we move on to the Sloviansk direction. Here, an extremely active offensive by units of the armed forces of the Russian Federation is currently unfolding. The most intense fighting today is concentrated along the M03 highway. In this sector, map adjustments have been taking place for several days in a row. Effectively, the front line has been changing daily for 3 consecutive days. Russian units are conducting active assault operations in the areas of the settlements of Minkivka, Privilia, and Holubivka. At the same time, forces are being pulled up toward Bondarne and Kromivka. In addition, Russian units continue to improve their positions in open terrain. The offensive is effectively developing in the space between the Siversky-Donetsk-Donbass Canal and the settlement of Siversk. The advance is proceeding quite actively, and the key objective here is obvious: to reach and then continue advancing along the Siversky-Donetsk-Donbass Canal all the way to the area of the settlement of Rai-Oleksandrivka. It is precisely in the area of Rai-Oleksandrivka that the armed forces of Ukraine are likely to concentrate their most rigid and organized resistance. Together with Mykolaiivka, this settlement will probably form the main defensive line on the approaches to Sloviansk. The overall pace of further Russian advances to the west will directly depend on the outcome of the battles for these two key points. In the near future, extremely fierce and heavy fighting can be expected here. At the same time, the Russian army continues offensive operations west of Siversk, in the areas of the settlements of Sviato-Pokrovsk and Reznikivka. This is how the dynamics of changes on the map over the past 24 hours look. According to the latest adjustments, Russian units have managed to advance in the area of a strongpoint located west of Sviato-Pokrovsk. As for the Lyman direction, for several days in a row, there has been virtually no new information coming from this sector. However, today, for the first time, possibly in the past 2 to 3 weeks, some movement has appeared on the maps of various cartographic services. According to the latest data, the armed forces of the Russian Federation have managed to break through the defenses of the armed forces of Ukraine north of the settlement of Lyman and reach its northern outskirts. Farming facilities, or rather what remains of them, as well as strongpoints along the T0526 highway, located directly at the entrance to the city of Lyman, have been taken under control. This advance is of fundamental importance, as it effectively cuts off the Ukrainian garrison located east and northeast of the T0526 highway from reliable supply routes. We are talking about a fairly extensive grey zone and territory that is currently still controlled by the armed forces of Ukraine. We are awaiting additional information. If these data are confirmed, very serious and large-scale adjustments to the front line may follow in the near future. Next, we move on to the Kupyansk direction. On the eve of the New Year holidays, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation released video footage and accompanied it with a brief commentary on the current situation in this sector. According to the official statement, the city of Kupyansk is under full and confident control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. At the same time, Ukrainian sources continue to report counterattacks. The Russian side also does not deny that the situation here remains extremely tense. The Ukrainian army is actively counterattacking, deploying more and more reinforcements. For this reason, it can be stated with confidence that before December 31, 2025, the map in this sector will be adjusted more than once. After that, we move on to the Sumy direction. Today, information has emerged indicating that Russian units have managed to improve their positions in the areas of the settlements of Kondrativka and Andriivka. In the near future, corresponding geolocation confirmations will most likely be published. And finally, let me once again remind you, today Volodymyr Zelensky flew to Washington for a meeting with US President Donald Trump. At the same time, information has already appeared indicating that the Ukrainian side has launched a massive strike on the territory of the Russian Federation using unmanned aerial vehicles. The attack is only beginning, and most likely we will see its first results closer to the start of the negotiation process and directly to the moment of the meeting between Zelensky and Trump. That concludes everything for today, dear friends. Thank you for your attention, thank you for watching the channel, subscribe, leave your likes. All the best to you.